Agreed. I agree with you, David.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Mi nombre es Nalia, con Georgia Spine en Orthopedics en Tucker, y estás escuchando Ayúdame con HIPAA.
Thank you for that intro. I am David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT. And joining me is Donna Grindle of CardinHQ.com.
Yes, you can go to CardinHQ.com to learn what I do.
So I found out this week that some people, even though we've been doing this for how many years now?
4.
4 years. Some people still don't realize that we have day jobs. And I do security, IT support, things like that. And you do compliance and things like that.
Yeah. I work on just your privacy and security management. I did run an IT company, and it was an MSP, and got smart and got out.
Yeah. Maybe people think when you say that you do privacy and security, they're like, well, I need somebody who does compliance.
I know, right? But if you say compliance, then you also have people going, well, I don't want to talk about compliance.
Right.
So I can't win. But yes, HIPAA compliance, if you have to do it, we can help.
Yep. So anyway, as much as we tried to get people to understand that. All right. So our topic for today, speaking of compliance, IT,
yes.
we're going to be looking at the Ponemon Institute annual study of data breach costs for 2019. This is the 14th year they put this together. And so now we have a lot of information to look at over the years and how it looks extended out, not just 1 year and as to what happened. But we're going to dive into that, look at what the key drivers are in the data breach costs and the remediation response. What are the things that you can do that will decrease the cost should you have a breach, and also things that you may or may not be doing that are increasing your cost if you have a breach.
Yes. And it is important to note that IBM sponsors the report every year. So for most of the time that it's been out there. In the beginning, it was sponsored by somebody else. But their report, we use it all the time to help us advise people on where to focus their resources.
Yeah.
And all we can do is tell you these numbers, and there's no better way to show, because I can't just say, well, because I think this is the way it should be done. Because no, I have to be able to debate and be prepared. So I do it with numbers because I like numbers. I like math and accounting and all that.
Yeah. Well, you also know that, people can't do everything. You can't go into a client and go, well, these are the 52 things you need to do.
Right.
We have to say, all right, we know we can only do a few of these, but what are those few things that are going to make the biggest impact? And that's where this helps out.
So you are very correct, young man.
I usually
get to
am.
stay young man for a little while.
All right, before we dive
Just
into
for
that.
a little while.
Yeah. So any place you got coming up that we haven't already told anybody about?
Well, no.
Nope.
No.
Good to go?
Well, my September gig in Memphis. That's it.
Cool. Well, short and sweet. Let's dive into today's topic after the break. The number of medical practices that think they're HIPAA compliant is pretty staggering. Effective privacy and security are an ongoing process, not a checklist. And that's why at Cardin, they don't just assess your situation and leave you with a report, but they work with you all along the way. Call Cardin today at 678-292-5001 or visit them on the web at CardinHQ.com. Aren't your patients worth it?
Are you frustrated with your current IT provider? Are you sure you're getting the security and protection you need? Are you putting your patients and your practice at risk? If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, give Security First IT a call to learn more about how they can protect your patients, your practice, and your bottom line. Find them online at securityfirstit.com or call 980 288-5100.
All right, we're back. Let's look at how much money you're going to be dishing out when you have a breach. You're going to make it rain in the club.
Well, there is that to some people, but it's insane what these things cost. And it doesn't matter how you slice it or dice it or want to look at it. It's not good.
Mm-mm.
And so the more prepared you are and the more you do your own internal housekeeping, the better off you're going to be. It's not that I don't need IT because everything's working fine. I know you love that one.
I've been doing my own IT for years, and
yeah, it's not changed. Well, here is evidence that this has changed because this study has gone on for 14 years, and they have monitored over all of that time a vast amount of data related to data breaches, both global and in the United States. They'll look at it from all the different countries, and they have like 500 and something different companies involved and over 3,200 people interviewed. I mean, this is not just a little wave of magic wand, pull some numbers out of the air.
Mm-hmm.
It's for real. It's for real statistician stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of this has changed so much. I mean, even in the IT space, the industry as a whole has really just started seeing this shift toward better security and different security really just over the last 2 years or less.
Right.
And so...
Well, they're starting to understand that they weren't secure.
Yeah. And, not only are you not secure, but what do we need to fill those gaps? Because even that's kind of up in the air at times.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have to provide to our clients? They're again, what that's going to make a difference, but yet can't cost a ton because most of the market can't afford that kind of stuff. And we've had conversations with clients that we've had for 5 years, 6 years, or longer, and we're having to say, look, what we did 3-4 years ago is just not good enough anymore. We've got to do something different, and it's got to be drastically different. And that means that the pricing is going to change and all that. And so you have to make a business decision. Are you going to move with us into this, the different environment that we're in now and take that security on? Or are you going to ignore it and then you'll end up being part of next year's data breach report?
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this year is it's the first time they're actually studying and saying, we got a ton of data. Let's look at the long tail. That's what they called it.
Mm-hmm.
The cost, not just the year of the breach, but the next year and then years beyond that.
Yeah.
How much does it cost and where did those costs land?
Because it's definitely more than a one-time event.
Yeah. And, we've talked over and over and over when these things happen, this goes on for years. Trust me, years. And when we talk about the settlements, it's very rare that a OCR settlement report comes out that was where the data breach occurred within the previous 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's occasional, but often it's just so obvious those get knocked out of the way. But it is very important to note in these numbers that they now exclude mega breaches in the averages calculated.
Well, that's good.
So,
makes it more accurate.
Yeah, more accurate and more sad when you see that they all go up even though they're excluding the mega breaches.
Yeah.
So they look at the mega breaches for any over 1 million. So if the breach had over 1 million records, it falls into mega breaches. And then they make it, if it's over 50 million, it's a mega, I guess. I don't know. Because the mega breaches, it skews the numbers so bad. And they started last year, I don't know, maybe because of Equifax. I don't know. Let's segment off these gigantic ones and monitor those because they skew the numbers for everybody else. But even those went up. The cost went up 8% on the over 1 million to 42 million per if it's a mega breach. So if it's over 1 million records that you have on file, you're looking at 42 million on average it cost you. And, that's, even Consuela would just pass out at that number, right? You know what I'm saying? She'd be like, I got nothing. I can't do a thing. Over 50 million, the average is 388 million. Oh my God. So that's 11% increase. Just 2018 over 2019 when they started tracking the mega breaches. We're not in looking those numbers. We're going to look at 1 million and below because that's a lot more indicative to a vast majority of data breaches. And if you know that if it's over 1 million, if you lose over 1 million records, hopefully you're prepared for how bad it's going to be.
Yeah.
I know people that say, if it's over 1 million records, we know that there's no real good choices for us.
No. Well, the other good part about pulling those numbers out is like when I see these reports, and other people may do this too, but when it says that, I'm going to lose $1.42 million in business, I'm like, I don't even do 1.42 million. So how am I going to lose it? So it makes you ignore the numbers because you just can't figure out how they apply to you.
Right. And so these numbers, though, give us the ability to work with that and make it where it goes with how you want to run your business and the size of your business. You can use these numbers any way that you feel would be near what your environment is like. But even if you use the lowest numbers and your number of records, it's painful.
Mm-hmm.
So let's first talk about what they think is the biggest contributor to the cost of a data breach. When we look at these numbers,
ignorance.
In a lot of ways, but that's generally what causes them. But in a lot of ways, the biggest impact to your bottom line in all of these numbers, over and over and over, after looking at it year after year, there are serious consequences from a data breach in what it does to your trust issues with consumers and the loss of business from that.
Mm-hmm.
That accounts for 36% of the total cost they're looking at.
Wow.
That's they say that the average across everything is a 3.9% abnormal customer turnover. So that's customers you lose.
Mm-hmm.
It's even harder to qualify or quantify the number of customers that you would have gotten, but you never got because of the reputational damage.
Right.
But just like many other areas, healthcare's winning again. A 7% turnover rate, not 3.9. Healthcare leads the way with a 7% turnover rate.
Yeah, it's almost double.
Yeah. And they said that, let's see the quote, customers seem to be more willing to take their business elsewhere in highly regulated industries such as healthcare and financial services.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they say this, we've seen this year after year after year, and it just keeps getting higher and higher. That increase, that number of abnormal churn increase every single year. And nobody seems to think it'll happen to them until it happens to them. But it's including in that number the cost of the business disruption. And if you think this is not a time sucker, oh, good Lord. Just, we're still working on logistics about having somebody tell you how much time this sucks. But revenue losses from system downtime because you've got to do forensics and you got to do all these other things because you have to know how bad it is. And the only way to know how bad it is to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that makes it worse is if you don't figure out how bad it is and you just notify like crazy, and then there's people you didn't really need to notify.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, so that you got the downtime, the cost of losing customers, and now the cost to acquire new customers.
Yeah, which is a lot higher.
Yeah, and then you have your reputation lost, the diminished goodwill, all of these kinds of things. But those are hard numbers for people to imagine. And, we talk to physicians about it, to get this point out that, okay, your referrals will likely drop if you're counting on local businesses and local providers to refer to you,
mm-hmm.
right? Not because the other physicians may be feeling bad for you. They're so busy, I'm not going to refer to them. It's more likely because they want to stay out of the line of fire. So I realized, I told David, I was like, when I was writing this, we're going to start, we talked to him about it, but we need to talk to him about it the other way around. We tell them, you need to worry that you're not going to get referrals. But I think it's more important for any time that there's a group that you have any referral arrangements with, whether you're sending to or receiving from, that you need to all decide what you're going to say if you encourage them to go to that doctor.
Mm-hmm.
If you've referred to it already, you're going to have a problem. At some point, you need to prepare for a patient to say, hey, you told me to go to those folks and now my data's in the wild. Or why are you referring me to them? Aren't they the ones that had the huge data breach?
Right.
Because people are asking these days.
Yeah. And by the way, and since we're talking about that, how's your security?
Right. So do you even want to go there? You
Right.
need to know if they start asking you, you can't just say, oh, we've got this. Because I've actually got people that I'm friends with who are now starting to ask me, what do I need to ask my doctor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wondering when that was going to start happening. We've talked about that a lot.
Mm-hmm. And it's happening more and more and more. And I can tell you, if, that's happening as much as it is to me, it's a lot,
Mm-hmm.
That people want to know. They just don't have anybody to ask. So, and that's probably another episode. So, look, we've created multiple episodes just in doing this one. But here is their point, is organizations worldwide continue to lose customers as a result of their data breaches. However, organizations with a senior level leader, such as a chief privacy officer, chief information security officer, directing initiatives to help improve customer trust in the guardianship of their personal information, may see lower turnover and therefore reduce the cost of the breach. Organizations that offer data breach victims identity protection in the aftermath are also more successful in reducing customer turnover.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing you need to keep in mind is most people have fallen into somebody else's breach at this point.
I know.
And they're covered already with that, and they don't necessarily sign up for it.
Yeah. So even if you offer everybody identity protection, there's a very, very large number of people that probably never take advantage of it.
Yeah. So you need to understand those numbers as part of your plan so that you can be prepared for understanding any of those things. So if they're saying, okay, right, your biggest cost factor is losing productivity and customers, both current ones leaving and new ones never showing up. So everybody ready.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention. So what is the long tail that they call it? It's a long, long tail. That's that statistical nerdy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Poneman loves that stuff. That's why they do all those pages about how they calculate the data in the report. So long tail talks about how far out this you're still paying for these things. And so what they did is, they looked at that and started to see, we talk about it all the time when we talk about settlement. Back to, what was it there? So last year, Anthems was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And was it last year they settled it? It was like 16 million. So wasn't it last year, like the end of the year?
Yeah, I believe it was.
All right. So with that in mind, they're like, it's at least 2 years. And theirs was huge and obvious, and everybody was all up in there. So you knew they were going to pay some. But they didn't pay just to OCR. I mean, they paid to the states. They paid all over the place, settling all kinds of lawsuits. So that being said, what they've determined is, on average, you have a data breach, 67% of the overall cost is paid in the first year. Okay, so that goes out the first year.
Mm-hmm.
But you better hope that your insurance still works.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. It's like, that still leaves a lot left to cover.
Yeah, the second year, it's 22%. And then after that, the third year and beyond is 11% of it. So you're still paying over 10% after the second year.
Mm-hmm.
But then note to self, Regulated industries, dum da dum dum, have a significant amount of the total in the following years. So if you're in a regulated industry, instead of the first year being 67%, it's 53%. So you're spreading it out a little more. But you're still then paying 32% in the second year and 16% after the second year. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But I guess that also explains why there's so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably, the investigation, the legal fees, you got to get through the courts and all the lawyers, and it ain't pretty.
Yeah, well, especially some of these investigations, because it takes so long to even get to them, to fully do it. And then, how long does it take for the investigation to finish? It's a long time.
Well, you got just the OCR part of it. And a lot of times you're providing documents and dealing with multiple cases.
Yeah.
We only have to worry about the OCR part of it, but often we have to help advise in other parts.
Mm-hmm.
And OMG, as they say, the number of times that you're supplying documents just to OCR. It's big hunk of chunks of time.
Oh, I'm sure.
Show me all of your training documentation for the last 3 years.
Can you sign this and retro date it?
Yeah, there's a lot of that goes on when we've discovered people in the midst of well, let me rephrase that. They've discovered us in the midst of investigations. And we're like, we can't make that up. It's like when you get that call, can you do a risk analysis for 2017 for me today?
I'm sorry, my time machine broke.
A hot tub time machine. But it's the time frames or those long tail costs that they're looking at and how long these things go on. So then they looked at, okay, well, how long do we look at the discovery and containment time? That end of the tail is all legal pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
But the discovery and containment there is the beginning. And that's that first year, right?
Right.
Well, the discovery and containment is taking 279 days.
Whew.
That's an increase of from 266 days in 2018. That's significant.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that makes it more expensive because the longer it takes to discover and contain it, the longer it takes to get the legal stuff done.
Yeah. And this is very important to understand that when you have a data breach, it is not likely that IT and all these other people are going to swoop in and make this thing go away fairly quickly. And we're talking months.
Yeah. Because, one of the things they pointed out was that if it takes over 200 days, so see, they're not even thinking that it's going to, from discovery to containment, 200 days. It's 37% more expensive if you can get it done under 200 days. 37%. That's huge, but it's still 200 days.
Yep.
This AMCA thing, they had somebody in their system for, 8 months? Or maybe, I think from March to, I can't remember, but it was a long time. It was a long time. So if you are looking for ways to make sure you save money, it's starting to become obvious. Take care of yourself up front.
Yep. Have a plan.
Eat an apple every day. Because that's a dramatic thing that if you can find it and contain it within 200 days, that's your goal. Come on. That's your goal.
Yeah.
So 279 is the average. So you're looking at a significantly less amount of time than the average to drive that down. So, yeah. And tick tock. All right. But then guess what? Smaller is not better. Yeah, it's tough, but the smaller your business, I like how they put it. Small businesses face disproportionately larger cost relative to larger organizations.
Well, would you think that's because they don't do anything And so when there is a breach, they're trying to, well, first of all, it's worse. Second of all, they have to put a lot more money into everything because they haven't done anything.
Right. So everything costs more when you're trying to do it fast.
Yeah.
It's that question we used to say, do you want it right now or do you want it done correctly? It's two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they looked at the size of the organization and in this, they even, broke it down so it was obvious that the cost and the averages per size of company. Because a lot of times we'll talk about these numbers. Well, those are big companies. It's not me. No, they're giving us numbers. So more than 25,000 employees in an organization, those are large organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And the average cost for those is $5.11 million. So that's a cost per employee of $204 per employee is their average cost.
Okay.
If you have between 500 and 1,000 employees, then it's a significantly different number because it's 2.65 million. Yeah, that's great. The total's less, but that brings the per employee cost down to $35.33. You're talking about entire people in the organization could lose their jobs. Multiple people to account for $3,533.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets even worse when you go down to 500 employees. Because now, if you just look at the 500 mark, so assume that you're dividing it by as many as possible, not the average number. So under 500 employees is 2.74 million. Like you said, 1.4 million. What?
Yeah.
So 2.74 million is the average for less than 500 employees, which makes at 500 employees the cost per person at $54.80. Now imagine if you're not dividing by 500. You're dividing by 100 or 50. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. Yeah. Boy, you got a lot to say today. A lot of oomps and
yeah. Are these numbers, because it's like, oh.
I know.
It hurts.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I look at it and I'm like, well, that $3 million coverage, okay, I'm slipping in right under there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because all of our clients are, 500 employees or less.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we've got a client, they've got, 20 employees. That means, of course, I don't know how far down that to take the math, but it's obviously going to be more than $5,500 a person.
Yeah. And even if it drops, you cut that in half and call it, 1.4 million or something, 1.3 million is the total, and you've got 100 employees.
If it's more than $20, I'm in trouble.
But what that means is the smaller organizations are the ones less likely to recover.
Yeah, that's true.
And you see them being sold out, takeovers, all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at the total cost, like that total average that we were just talking about, in the U.S. and healthcare, because we're going to focus on both.
Mm-hmm. And
I love how they put it in a continuing multi-year trend. The U.S. has an average total cost of $8.19 million, more than double the global average.
We win.
So over this 14 years of the study, the cost in the U.S. has gone up 130%. So anybody that says they didn't know they should be doing this maybe needs to reevaluate where they're getting their information.
My cost to provide services didn't go up 130% in the past 14 years.
Exactly. Exactly. In fact, we barely raised prices in the last 6 years for what we've been doing. So, and even then, no one has a budget for doing this stuff in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And they should have a technology budget, a security budget, and a compliance budget.
Yeah.
All three of those are needed.
And people don't know what that looks like. And, I've done some digging, and I think we may have talked about it on the past episode, but I've done some digging and looking at, what exactly should you be paying for IT? Now, I'm not talking about the compliance and all the other stuff, but what should your IT budget look like? Because most, especially small businesses, they have no idea. Like, what should I be paying? And the average is 3 to 5% of your total top line revenue. So if you do the math, if you're under 3%, then you're not spending enough money on your IT. If you're over 5%, then maybe you need to look at, are you spending too much on certain things? But that's where that number needs to be. And so far, everybody I've talked to usually looks at me and go, I'm less than 3%. I'm like, exactly.
Or my favorite is, I don't even have a budget line item.
Right. I don't have anything. So you have to have something. You have to have a line item budget for that, like you have to have for anything else in your business. Yeah. It can't be, well, when it comes up, we'll find the money for it.
Like what you said to that accountant.
Yeah. Yep. So I had an accountant tell me that he's been doing all of his own IT work for 20 years. And I said, yeah, I'm not very good with accounting either. Which is to say, you haven't been doing very good with IT.
Yeah, probably not. So it is one of those things where again, just like we started, you have got to start seeing it differently. Because we're not in the same world anymore. Nothing is the same. How we do security is not the same.
No.
You used to have your castle, and then you had, the big stone wall around it, and then you had a moat, and then you had a limited number of doorways, and we don't have that anymore. You just got a castle sitting out there with no guards in front. And 42 doors where there used to be one.
Yep.
And that's before you climb to the second level.
Yeah. Well, on the IT side, we've historically focused on support. So making sure you can print and get online and all this kind of stuff. Well, nowadays, we're more of a risk management company. And not only are we doing risk management, but now we're even doing loss prevention, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't lose your data. Don't lose your money. Don't lose your clients or your patients, whatever. So everything we're doing is to prevent loss.
Not just tell you, here, now you can do email.
Right.
Or your printer doesn't work. Oh, give me a minute. It's giving me funky fonts. Okay, give me a minute. But that's not the way anymore. Help desk is its own little animal now, and security and network management is a separate entity.
Yeah.
They used to all be lumped together, really. So you've got, in going back to our numbers, that the U.S., 130% increase. And guess what? For the 9th year in a row, winning the award
healthcare
for the highest cost associated.
Yeah, no surprise.
Healthcare.
No shocker at all.
None. No. They had the highest cost with data breaches at $6.45 million. That is huge when you consider that the global average for all industries is 3.92. So that's substantial. I mean, 60% more than the average.
Wow.
Good golly, Ms. Molly. Also, when you look at it and you see the average number of records in a single breach, 32,434.
Yeah. And this is with the big ones out of the equation.
Yeah. So the mega and the mega, they're not in there. So when you look at 32,000, there are a vast majority of the groups we work with have well more than 32,000 patients on file. You're looking into the 100,000s and those kind of things. But the biggest problem with that is people are keeping data. Right now, Capital One's catching a lot of flack in their data breach that was just announced. Yet another one for us to look at details.
Yeah.
Wow. That one is,
Now everybody knows what's in your wallet.
Just had to slip that one in. But, that was because, they've got to 2013, 24, a while that are applications for credit, Why do you have those applications sitting out there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what the lady took. And just the story of that one, it gets into the insider issues and all of those kind of things, which is a whole nother discussion. But the average cost per record for this year in healthcare in the United States alone, $429 per record. If you want to look and you say, hey, I don't believe those numbers are right, I'm not going to use those, fine. That's what I say. Look, to calculate your cost and the impact it'll have, don't use that number. If you think that number is way high, the lowest U.S. industry per record is public organizations. So that's $78 per record.
Mm-hmm.
The next one above there is $117. Fine. Then use 100 or 78 or whatever. Use a number down there with the lowest ones and still do the math.
It's still nasty.
Yeah. I mean, you use 100 and you've got 32,434 records. Hey, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm. That's a couple zeros on the end of that thing.
Yeah. So it changes the perspective no matter how you look at it. Find the cheapest one, go with it. And again, keep in mind that the big ones have taken out. So those aren't even the ones, we're looking at real numbers without those things in there.
Right.
And it ain't going to get any better anytime soon.
No.
The likelihood of you having a breach, and this is all of you people who say it won't happen to me. I don't have anything they want. I'm so small, it won't happen to me. And you would not believe the number of people that said that before they had a breach.
Yeah.
They do not say that anymore, because their viewpoint changed completely from I don't have a problem to I'm absolutely terrified it'll happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you survive one of these, think of the impact even at the $100 of having a second one the next year. And it happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So keep in mind that over the 2014, since 2014, the chances of having a breach in the next 2 years has grown nearly 30%. Statistically, you are 30% more likely today to have a data breach than you were in 2014.
Yep. So you've done nothing but increase your risk by 30%.
That's right.
For nothing, just by being.
Just by existing.
Yes.
There you go. It's just, again, I don't know how to educate any more than we are.
No.
We're doing everything we can think of to try to educate, but it's painful that what it takes. So when we look at one of the things that we're really able to do in this report over the years, this gets back to how do we make things better and not make things worse. And we have used this report for years as a reference for our decisions about which we recommend to our clients who are doing compliance, not IT work. So, we talk to the IT folks, we review quotes with them, all of these kind of things, helping people decide where I can use the money the best. And in this particular report, they were looking at 26 cost factors. Okay, so the top ones of cost: third-party involvement, compliance failures, extensive cloud migrations, system complexity, and operational technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are all things we talk about all the time. Well, the extensive cloud migration, still not getting that one. But it's only if you have a data breach in the middle of an extensive cloud migration. And I think it complicates things because you've got both the cloud to worry about and the on-prem stuff. And, I think that complicates things. But it's something that's always a significant number. And so if a third party caused the data breach, the cost increase, adjusted average total went from 3.9 to 4.29.
Yeah, and we're starting to see a lot of those.
And lack of security automation almost doubles the cost. There are 95% more expensive in your data breach, cost per record, 95% more expensive when you do not have any kind of AI, analytics, machine learning, any of those tools that are helping you see what is happening quicker than you having to manually find it. Somebody's got to be looking, and when you get no tools in place, nobody's looking.
But I got a free antivirus. I mean, honestly, even these days, even the paid antivirus, they're not good enough.
No.
I mean, we have to use tools that do different jobs, different ways, and stack those on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it like you talking about the castle a while ago. You go up, and then there's a moat, and then there's the wall, and then there's people on top of the wall with bows and arrows, and then there's a catapults. There's all these different levels of security, and some of them are defensive security, some of them offensive security, but that's the only way to even have a chance at protecting. And it's the same thing in IT. You can't just come in and throw a free antivirus or even a off-the-shelf paid antivirus solution on a machine and hope that that's going to solve the problem. In fact, I don't care how much money you throw at technology. If you're ignoring the people and the processes along with the technology, then you just don't have a chance.
No. It requires true housekeeping. And, even smaller companies today have to have something more than what they've had before.
Mm-hmm.
It's clearly not enough, or we wouldn't be having these numbers continue to rise.
Yeah.
Just in the total number of breaches and the cost that they have. So when you look at lack of real security that you would get from somebody like Security First IT in Charlotte, Georgia, in the Carolinas. But if you aren't getting professional IT support, I don't care what size of business you are, you're probably in deep trouble.
Yeah. Well,
it's not good.
We actually did a cybersecurity talk this morning at the local chamber meeting. And I think something that one of the people said there is kind of an indication to me of what the public at large and business owners are thinking. And what the comment was is when we were talking about all these things that are happening and breaches and all that, her comment was, why isn't somebody doing something about this? To which I want to say, well, what are you doing about it?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to tell you is this is your responsibility.
Right. And I told her, I was like, look, there are lots of people that are doing things, but it is not going to make a significant impact. There's not somebody that's running around trying to protect you from this happening. You have to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Local police are great for community enforcement, but when the criminal is, in Taiwan or even worse, they work for you.
Yeah.
Amazon, you're in control. There's no one else that can defend you from somebody else in another part of the world. And there's nobody else that can defend you if you're not trying to prevent problems internally.
Yeah. This is your problem to address. I understand you didn't create it, but as a business owner, you have to address this problem. Somebody's not doing it for you.
The other option is you disconnect from the internet completely.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes.
You don't use a mobile phone anymore. You don't have a smartphone. You could get an old school flip phone that doesn't have any data capability. Unplug the internet from your office. That's the only way you can be secure.
Yeah. And then you won't be listening to our podcast anymore.
I know, right? So the top 6 amplifiers are things that make it more expensive. Number 1, third-party involvement. Woo! Another victory lap for me.
Yeah. So the number one thing that makes it more expensive is third-party involvement.
Second, compliance failures. That's why you need help with compliance, which we do at Cardin, at cardinhq.com. You can learn more. The extensive cloud migration during the breach. Again, that one's system complexity and operational technology infrastructure. and extensive use of mobile platforms. All three of those kind of go together for you, don't they, David?
Yeah. Well, the system complexity thing drives me nuts because one of the things that we do is we come in and try to figure out how to make it simpler. How can we simplify the systems? How can we simplify the network? How can we simplify security? Because it's going to be more adopted by the staff if you can make it, simpler. But the other thing too is it's easier to manage, monitor, and protect the technology when it's not super complex as well. I think there's some people that believe that the more complex you make that technology infrastructure, the harder it is for somebody to break in because it's so complicated. But really what happens is it's so complicated that you can't manage it and you can't protect it because it's too complicated. And it drives me crazy. And oftentimes I think what happens, at least I've seen this happen, you have somebody who has worked for, a large corporation in the IT department, or they've worked in a data center or something like that, and they decide they want to go out on their own to do IT work. And so they go out and now they're doing IT for small business, but all they know are these massive enterprise solutions. They don't know how to support and protect a small business because it's a completely different animal and you can't do it the same way. And so they just make it too complex.
Agreed. I agree with you, David.
But it's crazy because I walk into places and I see, a small business and they'll have this, massive $10,000 server and they got 4 employees. And I'm like, why? Why do you have this?
Why?
Or they have a site-to-site VPN that's, costs somebody's like, we paid $20,000 for this. I'm like, but why? This is, you're using something that's meant for a big corporation. This is not meant for you.
Yeah. And in the meantime, they've eaten up your entire budget so that you don't get the chance to do the things you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And then whenever, an IT guy comes in and they're like, I know you've had this for 10 years, but we need to replace it. And the guy's like, I can't spend another $20,000 on that.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's not $20,000.
Well, and the like I told you back years ago when we were doing MSP work, we went into a group and that was the case, that this guy had left a corporate job and brought in to set up this IT. And it was, a really good financial services firm, been in play for years and years and years. So they weren't brand new. And they bring in the guy, I got a guy, and he put in 4 employees, 5 servers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
5 servers?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like ridiculous. I had more servers than I had people.
Wow.
Yeah. And all of the machines on the desktop were old, but I got new servers. Well, yeah, where do they make their money? So those total, if you have those added to it, if you were to have all of those problems, that's a total of $69.28 per record that you're going to add.
Mm.
So remember when we're talking about we're going to start at 100.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, you've already made it bad. So you need to vet your vendors better. You need to prepare with your compliance program and have it in place. If you're going to do an extensive cloud migration, we need to figure out what that means. That's usually not what happens with system complexity. KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
The infrastructure, same thing. And then if you're going to use mobile, remember David's thing about all of the security around the moat? Well, once you start using mobile, you lose all of that. Yep. So now you got to have new security.
Yeah, now everybody's got to have armor they walk around with.
Yeah, they got to be carrying their armor because they could be attacked anywhere and lead to an attack on the castle.
Yep.
So the mitigators, we this one always gets us. The mitigators, the things that make things better, is just housekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Housekeeping, doing what you should be doing. There is one new thing on here, and it's a new thing that we've started doing with the software companies that we work with as well, is looking at how can you do this better. But number 1, forming an IR team, an incident response team, just having one. Just having one.
Which you're supposed to, and according to HIPAA.
Yeah. These are not complicated things. You should have one.
Yeah.
Okay. That saves $13.66.
Yeah. That saves the most amount of money. But the interesting part is it doesn't even say that you're doing much with it.
Just having it.
Did you have one?
Because in a minute, we'll get to why. Extensive use of encryption. Encrypt. Just encrypt.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it.
But it's not required. It's addressable.
I'm not going there today. Extensive testing of the IR plan. That's a separate item from just having one. If you just have one, but you don't run a ton of tests, but you have a plan with a team that actually has a plan, that saves money. But then if you test, you save even more.
Yeah. And I've never seen anything like that. Like, you don't have to follow it. Just have it. And it still helps. I swear I've never seen anything like that.
Well, you just think about it. It makes you more aware if you think about it and you form the team and everybody understands what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
They may not have tried it yet, but they at least know what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's a start. Business continuity management, BCM, that's in there, And these are all in there every year. All of the ones we talked about so far.
Mm-hmm.
The new one is DevSecOps approach. So that is how software companies develop things. And if you write little scripts internally or all kinds of VB, for those who say they're programmers because they write code in Excel, and, bless it. You go now. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not programming, but it's not easy. It's scripting. So at any rate, that is you need your vendors. One of the ways you can vet your vendors is you say, do you have a DevSecOps program? DEV, SEC, OPS. So they're looking at security, not just of their network, but also in their development of software.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're developing it internally for your own use and scripts, you need to include that. And you want to know that your software vendors are including that. And then the sixth thing, which is always in the top, part, employee training.
Yep.
All of these are all things that you should do. Every one of them. So you save a total of $70.92 if you do those things.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So back to 100. What have you just done? So I think we know what you need to have in your program. Call up somebody that knows how to do all of that and help you point you in all those different directions. Like, I don't know, Carden.
I was going to say, do you know somebody?
Because, they do compliance work. They speak IT, lawyers, OCR investigation. We talk to all those people and go, okay, here's what you should do. But anyway, I think we've run that joke out. But the important thing to understand is there is a to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. And it's really not changing a lot over the last few years. The DevSecOps, that came like poof, shot out in, nowhere as far as on the list. But all of the other stuff essentially remaining the same.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think that's really interesting, and we were talking about as we looked at the report, is that if you simply work on the human error aspect of it, so in other words, do your training with your employees and make sure you address the users and all that. If you do that, and you also work on the IT side of things, making sure your systems are good and all that stuff, then the data breach root causes will drop by 49%.
Yeah. 49% of the root causes system glitches, which I hate, and human error.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are training your people, you have your plan, you're doing your patch management, and you're running proper security, not just, I got a guy who put some antivirus on there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing that and training your people properly, then the vast majority of it could be prevented in the first place.
Yeah, you've cut it in half.
So there you go. There's your checklist. We're done.
All right, that's our show for today, folks. You've got a lot of homework to do. If you need help with any of this, Go back and listen to the ads at the beginning. All right. So remember to follow us, share us out on your favorite social media sites, rate our podcasting out. We appreciate it. And remember, for Donna and myself, the HIPAA is not about security or compliance or privacy. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.